Okay, so this today's Scholarly Snippets webinar is about how to select a research topic. My name is Molly Montgomery. I am the Director of Library Services at the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine. This webinar is a part of a series that's been organized and is taught by osteopathic medical librarians at schools all over the United States. The goal of these webinars is to help you advance your research skills and support your scholarly activities. We welcome everyone, so we don't have a preference for audience. We originally created these with osteopathic students and faculty in mind, but we welcome students, faculty, clinicians, and librarians from anywhere, because if this is information you're interested in, we would love to have you here. We do have a quick poll to try to get a sense of who's actually attending today versus just those who have registered. So please go ahead and fill in this quick one question poll so we kind of get a sense of who you are and who's here. And if none of these describe you, go ahead and put what best describes you in the chat. Okay, that's a lot of librarians. That's great. These are my people, so I'm comfortable with that. But also a variety of faculty, staff, and students. That's wonderful to see. Okay, so the objectives for this particular session is I'm hoping by the end of this, you'll be able to describe strategies for selecting a research topic and identify some tips to help you turn that topic into a great research question. So why do we think this is important enough to talk about in this Scholarly Snippets webinar? Why do a lot of librarians focus on this when talking to students or clinicians or faculty? Part of the reason why I think it's important is that selecting a research topic that's just right is not easy. This is complicated. In the 20 or so years that I've been a medical librarian, this is actually the point that really stumps a lot of students. They get totally overwhelmed with trying to find a perfect research topic. So I think it's important to talk about some of the ways you can actually choose a great research topic. Another reason why we focus on this is that if you don't have a great research topic, or if you have a poorly formed research topic at the beginning, your life is just going to be so much harder the rest of that research project, because it's either going to be too broad or too focused, and it's just going to be hard to work with. So our goal is to help you save time and aggravation by putting up some work up front to choose a great research topic. Before we get into sort of the specifics about some of the ways I think you can choose and work with a great research topic, it's important to be in this mindset before we get started. And so I have this picture here of a little kiddo looking at a rock. And I think this is important because I think step 0 of choosing a great research topic is to be curious, because a lot of our research topic ideas come from asking questions and wondering and having that mindset of that sort of childlike curiosity. Also, a good piece of advice is to pick something you find interesting, because even if this is an assignment, it's something you have to do, you want it at least to be something that you are going to enjoy spending time on, because depending on the length of the project, you may be spending months or even years working on this particular topic. Make sure it's something you care about and not something that's maybe assigned to you. And be comfortable with the idea that your idea is not going to be really great at the beginning. An ill-formed idea is fine at this stage. It's what we expect. And a lot of my students get very stressed out with this feeling, is that they will come to me and say, I feel lost. I feel like I don't know where I'm going, like I don't have a direction. And that's okay. That's the normal mindset where you should be at the very beginning of a research project where you haven't really chosen that topic. It's okay to feel lost. This is the right place to be. And it's also important to take your time. So when choosing a research topic, don't expect it to be something you're going to sit down and just bang out in 30 minutes or an afternoon. This is something that should take days, if not weeks, to really form well. Because again, if you have an ill-formed research topic, you're going to be spending a lot more time on the back end. So spend some time here in the front end. So when talking to students or clinicians or faculty about, especially when they come to me and they're like, I have been assigned a research topic, I have to choose something, I have no idea, I'm given no direction. So I usually go through this process with them to help them find that spark, that idea. And one of the first things I ask them is, in your particular setting, have you ever asked yourself this question? Why do we do this? Or why do we do things this way? And if you come away with the answer, there has got to be a better way to do things than the way we currently are, that sounds like a potential research project. Also, asking, why is this happening, or what's going on? So you can see these questions, again, that's why that piece of curiosity is important. If you are asking these kind of questions, you are wondering why something is happening. That sounds like a research project. A lot of our healthcare students and faculty are really social justice minded. And so they are identifying disparities or injustices in the way groups of people are treated. And that definitely can be a spark or a potential research direction in which to start a project. There are a lot of research gaps in the literature where things may be really well studied in one area and not studied at all in another. Either you find this out by trying to find research and you find nothing, or you look for research where, like, maybe you're reading an article and that last paragraph of the article will say something like, additional research should be done in this direction. Well, that's great. They just gave you a research idea. There also could be controversies in practices or research, and this doesn't have to be capital C controversies, like a huge controversy. It could just be one group of people does things one way, another group does things the other way, and there's not a way that we've identified that is best. And so maybe a research project could be trying to find that best way to do something. Also could be somewhat more passive, like you read an interesting article that sparked something in you, you watched a lecture, a webinar, or you attended a conference presentation that gave you some ideas to do things moving forward. And so sometimes even when I give students these ideas, they're still like, no, I've got nothing. And so here's some additional ways to find some research topic ideas. I tell them to go out and find some online journals and just browse the table of contents. And they shouldn't just be any online journal. They should be something in your area of interest, your specialty, your field of study. And doing this will give you a sense of what's going on in that field right now, in that specialty right now. And that doesn't mean you necessarily need to copy what those people are doing, but maybe it will get you thinking of something along those lines that you might be interested in pursuing. You can also look through abstracts from conference presentations. You don't necessarily have to attend those conferences. A lot of conferences will put up their abstracts for free, so you can just browse through them. And that can be even more up to date and more of a sense of what's going on in a community of practice or a field, even more so than a journal, because journals do tend to have a little bit of a lag. You can also just brainstorm, like talk this over with your friends or family or colleagues about topics they're interested in or what they're pursuing. And that might be something that can get your creative juices flowing. And for the most part, social media is kind of a trash fire. It isn't always a good source for anything, but in this case, it can be. So my Twitter account for my library Twitter account basically is where I follow a lot of people who are into evidence-based medicine, who are into epidemiology and public health. And so I sort of see the things that they are talking about, the things that they're struggling with, and that gives me some ideas for things that may be a good research idea. So this particular slide isn't about coming up with ideas, but it is about, it's something that I see in students that will come to me for help deciding what they want to do for research. And they seemed like they're all planning to do everything on their own. And please don't. Like, we're all super busy, and doing a research project on your own can be so much work. So you don't have to. It's okay to bring other people into your project. For some reason, this sentence keeps coming up everywhere I go, where teamwork makes the dream work. I guess so. I mean, maybe. So one of the ideas is you could come up with an idea and invite others. So this is your project, you're leading it, and you're getting others to come with you to collaborate. Or you can look for projects that other people are leading or starting and join those based on shared interests. So it will make your life easier if you collaborate, for sure. One more thing to think about before we get into actually choosing and refining a research topic is that think about the end product. What do you want to do with this research project when it's done? Because that might change what that research topic is or how you're going to study it. So is your end goal a journal article? Or are you okay just presenting at a conference with a poster or a presentation? Is this going to be more like an internal project at an institution, whether that's an assignment or something that you have to do for work? Are you looking to influence policies or procedures? Again, that can be really small scale, like it might be something within the department or an institution. It might be community-based or in a wider political arena. So all of these are different ways to share your product or influence where your end product is going to be. Okay, so now let's talk about how to actually come up with the ideas. So the first thing you need to do is just stare off into space and think really about what you're interested in, and take some of those sparks maybe, or some like looking through the table of contents or conference ideas, and list out some of the things that are appealing to you. This can just be a list on a piece of paper or in a Google Doc or something. That's usually what I do. Or some other people will create what's called a concept map, and looks a little bit like this image on the right, where you have maybe a research idea or questions and some of the main ideas and maybe sub ideas that are coming from that. And this is not the end product. This is just the brainstorming time. So it's okay to be stream of consciousness. It's okay if it's imperfect. You don't want to stop things because you want perfection. That is going to interfere with this particular step. You really want to just kind of brainstorm and just put whatever ideas out there for things that you might be interested in. Okay, so once you've spent some time on that and have a list of, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 research topics, then it's time to take this finer criteria, which is this acronym, and apply it to your ideas. And so a lot of you have been in any kind of a research class have probably seen this finer criteria, but I will go over it just to make sure we're all on the same page. The F, it stands for feasible. So you need to think about, can this research project be something you can accomplish in your current setting? Do you have the time? Do you have the resources? Do you have the funding? Do you have access to the populations you need? Is it even possible to do? Working with medical students, they come to me with huge ideas, which are super exciting. And I applaud them for wanting to take on so much, but in that current setting, it's just not feasible. It's too much. You want it to be interesting, not only just to yourself, but to whoever your potential audience is. So if this is sort of like a passion project for you, but you know that maybe not a lot of other people would be interested in it, you might want to modify it. You also want it to be novel. If this is something that is so well studied and everyone has done this and there's thousands of articles on it, it's probably not novel. But something I tell my students when they come to me with an idea that's definitely not novel, but they're really passionate, they want to pursue it, we talk about ways to make an established idea or practice maybe more specific by looking at a special population or a different setting. So I work in an osteopathic school, so there's not a lot of research on osteopathic students or osteopathic faculty or clinicians. So maybe taking this idea and focusing on an osteopathic population. I also live in Idaho, which is a fairly rural state. And so sometimes the students will pursue something that has been fairly well studied in urban settings to a more rural setting. I'm hoping that all of you will choose an ethical project or ethical research idea. But it is something to think about. If you have a research project that is going to be based on a vulnerable population, you need to make sure that's going to be able to get through your institutional review board. You just need to make sure that that is something that would pass. So something to think about. And you want to make sure it's relevant. If this is something that was studied, well, like 10 years ago and no one's talking about it and there's been no changes, it may not be relevant and you may want to think of something else. Oh, every time I see the finer criteria, I think about this. So this is finer, I guess. So another thing I see with students and some faculty and clinicians when they come to me to talk about choosing a topic is that they tend to be really broad or really specific, but what we're looking for is this Goldilocks topic, something that is just right. So here's an example. Stress in medical students. This is a very, it's not a novel idea, but it certainly is a relevant idea for a lot of the students who are looking to study a particular research topic on this. But it is too broad. It's just too broad. That just encompasses so much. So what do you want to study? This is obviously a ridiculous example that shows how specific you potentially could get. But yeah, this is way too specific. But something like this, where you have a particular intervention, you have a specific population, you have a time frame, that might be just right. But do know that this will take time to get right. And this is another part that takes practice, and it just takes work doing, is that a lot of us, especially like medical librarians, we read a lot of articles, we see a lot of things. So we kind of get a sense of what is too broad, what's too specific, and what's just right. And it just takes practice. So the first part of refining a topic is you've done the brainstorming, you have determined like the finer criteria. Now it's time to take that on a test run. You're going to go into Google Scholar or PubMed or some database and do a basic search. Basic search is fine. We're not looking for anything fancy here. We're just looking to see if there's anything out there, what's out there. But do use different terms. So kind of mess around with some different terminology. So here's an example from mine. So I'm interested in projects that might look at peer support in clinical clerkships. So I found one, but as I was looking for it, I started reading through this article and I looked at their reference list, and it got me thinking about, oh, actually the part where people are most stressed is the transition from didactics to clinical. So actually I'm really interested in that. So I'm going to add some new terms, and I found a really good article. So this is a messy search space. This is not, again, about being perfect. This is seeing what's out there to maybe potentially refine your topic or change it entirely. So some ideas here. This is some of the things you're going to see when you're in this first stage. You may see thousands of articles on something. If they are a very close match to what you want to study, it's probably not novel. And so you might want to think of ways to make it a little more specific. If you find very few articles, well, this can be good and bad. It's bad if you're trying to do a literature review and you want a body of literature basically to be able to base that review on. But it can be good, especially if you are looking to do original research, if you're working on a dissertation, or you're looking to establish yourself in a particular niche area. This could be what you study the rest of your career if no one else is doing it. So there's pros and cons to very few articles. Know at this stage it's completely fine and understandable and normal to change your topic or go in a totally different direction than you thought you were. As you read more literature, as you get a sense of what's being studied, your topic probably should change. So this is okay. And if you haven't asked a librarian for help at this stage, please do. This is the stuff that we are really good at. We can help you with your search. We can help you think about the direction you may want to take your research topic. I had a medical student who sent me this week, and I just really loved it. It's very appropriate. So a second part to refining your topic is trying to get it much more specific. And you can do so by using this PICO mnemonic or acronym. If you've taken any classes or done anything with evidence-based medicine, you're probably really familiar with this, but you can use it for choosing a topic as well. And so this first part is the patient or population. The I is the intervention. The C is the comparison that you're comparing the intervention to. The O is the outcome you're looking at. Time can or cannot be relevant, but sometimes it is. And that second T doesn't get used a lot, at least with evidence-based medicine stuff, but I think it's important for choosing a topic because it kind of helps you think about the way you would actually want to study this. So what kind of study would you use in this particular research topic? Ooh, cilantro. It's getting lunchtime for a lot of people here, so I thought I'd put some salsa, some pico, except it's got a lot of cilantro, and I'm one of those people who tastes like toothpaste, so it's terrible. So let's do this pico with my example of the peer support in clerkships. So in this case, my patient or population, these are osteopathic students in their clinical clerkships, fairly specific, maybe borderline too specific, but we're going to go for it. Intervention will be that peer support program. A comparison, no support program. We're looking to see if it's going to impact stress levels. And I just threw 6 months out there because sure, why not? And the type of study, sometimes you won't know this right away because you still will be very early on in choosing your topic. But in this one, it would probably be some sort of non-randomized pilot study. It would be looking to do a small study. So something to know about PICO, it doesn't work for all types of questions. It is really intervention focused. So if you're doing a qualitative study, if you are doing maybe an observational study, excuse me, it might not work. So you may just have to use the components that work for you. But the real value of PICO is identifying different aspects of a topic to help you make it more specific. So in the case of like stress in medical students, what I would take to that student to say, hey, what population are you really interested in? Like which medical students? What intervention would you be interested in? What outcome are you looking at? Because it can help you think about what is it you really want to know about this particular topic and what do you want to study? If you don't like PICO, you can also use the classic, the who, what, where, when, and why. Just ask those questions of your topic to try to make it more specific. So once you kind of have a topic and it is fairly well defined, it's nice and specific, now you need to be able to take that topic and turn it into a research question. This is an important step because in many granting agencies, a lot of people, like if you're doing it at a school and you're a student and you want to be able to get this approved, a lot of times the paperwork or the forms will say, what's your research question? So you need to be able to create a nice, beautiful, well-defined research question. And sometimes there's templates out there that can help. So there is a PICO template. If you just search it, you'll find this or something very similar to it, where this takes different types of questions and it takes the elements you identified from PICO and you can just input them and it'll create a beautiful question. So here's my example. Mine is looking at an intervention. So in OMS 3s and 4s, which is my population, how does peer support compared to no peer support affect stress levels within 6 months? It is a beautiful research question. I didn't have to do that much work to get there. Okay, so this is the process we've gone through so far in the last like 15 minutes. This should take you weeks. So we went through it really fast, but it's fine and normal if it takes time. So we start up here at this question mark. You're like, what is even happening? What am I doing here? You brainstorm, you think about some things, you're like, okay, yes, stress in medical students, that's what I want to focus on, but you know that's too broad. So you do a little bit of extra searching, you maybe apply those PICO criteria. Okay, awesome, focused idea, I'm killing it. Finally, you end up with an amazing and researchable question. Congratulations. Again, we went through this quickly, it takes time. I'm going to mention research methods really quickly because I think this is important to think about as you're developing your research question or your research topic, is how are you going to study this? There's a lot of options and some of them are much more doable than others depending on where you are in your career, where you are, your particular institution, your setting, how much time you have. Most likely, most of us anyway, are not going to have time or resources to do a multi-center randomized control trial. That's just not going to happen. But a literature review, a survey, maybe a qualitative research, something retrospective, these are much more doable. What I tell students, at least, is to start small, and it's okay to start small. That big ideas lead to complex projects. And again, most of us don't have a ton of time to be working on stuff like that. Really think about what you're really going to be able to do. What do you have access to? What do you have time to do? Will you be able to do a prospective 10-year study? Probably not. So make it much more manageable. Also think about the population you'll have access to or what data you'll have access to. You may want to do a retrospective medical record study, but how are you going to get that data? Where is that going to come from? And a pilot study is fine. Like that is a great place to start where it's something that is small in scale and small in scope, but can lead to something bigger. Okay, so summing up, a well thought out research topic takes time and it takes work, but it is well worth it because it's going to make your life so much easier down the line. Make sure to use those FINER and PICO acronyms to make sure that your topic is feasible and doable, plus that it's nice and focused. And use that PICO templates to make a really nice research question. And of course, start small. Small is okay, especially if this is your first project. So feedback. If you registered for this webinar, you will get an email asking us how we did. Please provide feedback. We're always looking for ways to improve. We do have another Scholarly Snippets webinar that's coming up next Wednesday. It is going to be on effective searching techniques using MESH, which is the subject headings that our PubMed uses. And you can register here, or you can go to the Scholarly Snippets website and look at all of our options that are going to be coming up for this academic year. Okay, that is the end for me. This is my contact information if you want to email me, or if you want to unmute yourself. We have got 4 whole minutes if you've got any questions or comments.